Hello and welcome to the Django DRF API Query Fundamentals course. My name is Xander. Now this tutorial is part of a whole course playlist available for free on YouTube. For deeper learning, the full course is available for purchase at Udemy. Find all of these resources and links in the video description. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for weekly promotions, discounts, and Udemy course giveaways. Throughout the learning journey in this course, we will be using Docker to streamline the development, hopefully improve consistency so that we all have the same experience, and simplify the project setup. Docker is open source, which means that we can utilize it, download it, use it for development, shipping, and running applications inside of containers. So Docker is a containerization tool. It allows us to package applications and their dependencies into lightweight, portable containers. So instead of dealing with complex installations, conflicting dependencies, or it works on my machine issues that we might have, Docker ensures that our development environment is consistent across all systems, whether you're using Windows, Mac, or Linux. Why use Docker in general? Well, containerization is a very popular and useful skill to have, particularly as a developer. Docker is utilized worldwide, and the likelihood is that if you are in the development world, that you'll utilize containerization at some point. So it's simply just well worth knowing. Second is that it provides us consistency. So everyone in this course will work in the same environment. That will hopefully ensure that we all have the same experience when running our application code. Now, once we get past that first barrier of entry here with Docker, Docker may initially feel as though it has a steep learning curve, but once you understand the basics of images and containers and how to simply work with them, Docker is very easy to set up. Once we have Docker set up, we can quickly spin up and tear down services, applications within Docker containers. And this is the real benefit and advantage of using Docker, in that we can quickly start, stop, reset applications so that we can further test and develop our code. So by the end of this course, you will have hands-on experience with Docker and understand how to use it for real-world development projects. Docker is built on three key concepts: images, containers, and volumes. So understanding these will help you work efficiently with Docker. So first of all, the image. So an image is like a blueprint. A Docker image, let's think of it like a blueprint or a recipe for creating a container. So it contains everything you need to run the application. So a Docker image will have code, libraries and dependencies, and the operating system environment within the image. And like I alluded to, we're going to use this image to actually then build a container. So you might think of a Docker image as a frozen pizza. So like a frozen pizza, everything is there in the frozen pizza. We simply need to quickly cook it and then we can consume it. So the same with the image. It has all the code, dependencies, the operating system environment. All we need to do is run it in a container. So all images get turned into a container, and a container is a running instance of a Docker image. So we have our container here running now, and once the container has started, we now have a very fresh pizza, and it's now ready to use. So in our case, of course, we will have some sort of application started. So the Docker container is where the application will run. It is an isolated, lightweight environment that will run our application. So let's imagine we wanted to create a Postgres container and actually run Postgres on our machine. Well, we would need to, first of all, find an image. Typically, if we head over to Docker Hub, this is where we will find images related to maybe software we want to run in containers. So let's head over to, let's type in Postgres into the search here. You can see that we have a Postgres image, which we can utilize. This is the official image. Now, you often find that there are different versions like Bullseye, Buster, Jammy, Focal, Alpine, Slim. These names refer to specific versions of operating systems, mainly Debian and Ubuntu, which are commonly used as base images in the Docker images. In addition to that, you will find earlier and later editions of the software, so you can pick and choose which version of the software you want to use. Now, if you're concerned about security, do make sure that you download official images only. Right, so that's where the image starts, and we'll go ahead and install Docker Desktop on our machine. So on our machine, we'll go ahead and install Docker Desktop. So Docker Desktop is a tool, an optional tool we can use to manage our images and containers on our machine. In this course, that is exactly what we're going to be doing, installing and using Docker Desktop to manage images and containers. Now, Docker can be managed from the command line, but the Docker Desktop is a graphical user interface, so it just allows us to easily work with images and containers without having to learn all the different commands. So what we will see in this course is that we will select and find the image we want to utilize. That will be downloaded to our local machine, and then we will then create a container from that image. And in that image, that is where our application will reside and run from. And we will be able to then interact with that application whilst the container is running. Next up, I'll take you through the basic installation steps, installing Docker Desktop, and give you an overview or introduction to the Docker Desktop UI. Installing Docker is really simple. I don't need to show you step by step. Head over to Docker Desktop in your browser, and normally the top option. That would take you to docker.com products Docker Desktop. From here, you can then simply download Docker Desktop, and you can see there's a few options there depending on your operating system. So simply download from here. Go ahead, work through the installation process from the download. There should be a very simple case of next, next, next. You may need to restart, and then once it's finished, you can then open up Docker Desktop. So once you open up Docker Desktop, typically it opens up to the images section. So here on the left-hand side, if not, I've selected images. Now you won't have any images at this point. This is just an example, but you can see here in my list of images, I have 2 images. And these represent, like we discussed earlier, images being the blueprint or containers containing the app and its dependencies ready for me to turn into containers. And in this course, we'll learn how to download images and then start the containers from the images. But just to give you a quick overview, here's the images. This is where we're going to find the images. To manage them, we're simply going to need to install them and then delete them. So there's nothing else we need to know at this point other than how to download from Docker Hub, which we will do later in the course, and then to delete them, just press the big red delete button. Now, eventually we will turn these images into containers. So if we head over to containers, this is what it's going to look like when the container runs. Now we have individual containers that we can run, or we're going to build projects where we will have multiple containers. So you can see this drop down for this project where we have multiple containers. So this is an indication that I have 2 containers running with 2 separate applications. The green status indicates it's running. It will let me know if the container stops or the container didn't start correctly. I can then move into the container and get more information about the container. So we have the log output here. If there's any issues, I can view the container and any errors that we might have. We also have the capabilities to interact with the container via the terminal here, the exec. So this will give us a terminal into the container where we can type commands, as well as we can view and inspect the folder and files that we have in our container. To manage these containers, we can simply select them all or individually, go ahead and delete, pause, stop the containers as we wish. Now, something I haven't mentioned yet is Docker volumes. So Docker volumes is a way to store data outside a container so it doesn't get lost when the container starts or restarts. And that's the important point to make about the containers. the container won't persist data outside of the container by default, which means that if I were to run a container, maybe change any of the files or data within that container and then stop the container, we would lose the data. So it doesn't persist at all. So volumes is a way, like I said, to store data outside the container. So we can configure volumes for different containers so that we can store that data outside of the container so that when we restart the container, we can continue where we left off without losing any data. Now, there are different types of volumes that we can create. If we have a look in the Volumes tab, we can see here remnants of different volumes that have been created when we create or start a container. As and when we get to the point in the course where we start to use volumes, more information will be provided. And that is all that we need to know to get started with this course. Now, if you have just forgotten everything I've just said, don't worry. As we work through this course, it will start to sink in and hopefully become clearer as to how we're going to utilize Docker and what it provides us in terms of making our application development process a lot smoother and efficient.